Okay, this session is now being recorded. Good morning, everybody. My name is Indira Blažević. I'm with the Iowa Afterschool Alliance, and welcome to our October 21st Century webinar. Today, we have a special treat for you. We have two of our literacy coaches, Angela Cardamon and Emily Hesse, with us, and they will be talking about engaging and effective literacy strategies incorporated into after school. Just to begin with some housekeeping things, I already mentioned, but if you did not hear me, please go ahead and use either just your computer audio or just the conference line. If you use both, it will create echo on your end. And if you are on the conference line and you would like to mute yourself, you can go ahead and press *6, and that will mute your line. If you have any questions, you can either speak on the conference line or you can type your questions into the chat box, and I will be monitoring the chat box and letting our presenters know if they have questions. They said that they are willing to take questions during their presentation, so you can feel free to type questions into the chat box whenever. Does anybody have any questions before we begin? Okay, then I will let our presenters introduce themselves.
Good morning. My name is Emily Hesse, and I'm one of the literacy coaches with Central Iowa's United Way of Central Iowa's Out of School Time Literacy Initiative.
And I'm Angela Cardamon, and I'm the other literacy coach with this literacy initiative.
And so today we're going to be talking about what good literacy practices look like in out of school time programs. So we have been with this initiative since June, and we've been learning a lot as we've been going. So what we've determined is, as skill development activities. So these are what we're talking about when we talk about incorporating areas of literacy into out-of-school time programming.
And it's a process that builds slowly. We're starting with read alouds, and today we're basically going to be talking to you about read alouds and different considerations in setting up your staff to do a balanced literacy program.
And so, like Angela said, read alouds are the starting point. The message we'd really like to get across is that comprehension is one of the most important parts of reading. Just reading is not enough anymore. We've really got to make sure kids are understanding what they're reading. And so that means monitoring student reading comprehension during read alouds and during independent reading time.
And as the staff begins to feel confident and proficient, then we can move on to add different elements of the literacy program. Always keeping in mind the grade level standards and age appropriate activities. It is not appropriate for kindergartners to read a book silently for 45 minutes. So trying to get the staff to understand this and plan around this is part of our job.
And so as you can see with the table at the bottom of the slide there, we've just got some different areas of literacy that would be appropriate to highlight for the different grade levels. So for example, with K1, they're really working on phonics, which is letter-sound relationship, and the idea that sounds make up words, and the simple story elements, whereas with 4th and 5th graders, they would still be working on story elements, but we'd be asking more of them, more complex connections, more complex understanding of the story. And then they'd also, with that age, be working on more of different comprehension strategies. So you've got to keep in mind the age of your kids and what you'd like to accomplish with them.
So basically, when we've gone into sites, the first thing we've looked at is, do they have materials to conduct literacy programs? What kind of environment do they have? Are books accessible? Are books arranged in any sort of order? Is the staff on board? Are they committed to doing this? And what kind of training they've had or we can provide. And then the real starting point is scheduling. So we came up with a site readiness evaluation so that we can look at, do you have a curriculum? What kind of materials are available? Is there technology available and working? And then what is the staff like? What kind of experience? What kind of education?
So when you look at literacy in your specific programs, this would be kind of like a starting point to decide, are you ready to be implementing other literacy activities?
Someone have a question?
Was there a question?
We might just be getting some feedback.
Okay.
So the materials necessary for literacy and out of school time. It's really important to have age-appropriate independent reading materials as well. And we understand that programs get their books from a lot of different places, but it can be books, magazines, or other texts. It's important to have both fiction and nonfiction books and a variety of genres to provide interest level to kids of all different ages.
And then interesting books to use for whole group read alouds and books that you can focus on and you're pre-prepared with to focus on vocabulary and story elements.
And keeping in mind with that you can read aloud books that are of a higher level than kids can read independently. So their listening comprehension level is higher than their reading comprehension level. So that's something to keep in mind as well when selecting books for read aloud.
Also available should be a variety of writing or creating materials, pencils, markers, paper, scissors, glue, and they should be, highly accessible to the children.
Yes, there is a question in the chat box, and it says, will this PowerPoint be available for print later?
Yes, we can put it up on the our initiative wiki, and it will be available.
And we will also share the wiki website with you during this presentation.
All right, and so moving on to the literacy environment, which is also very important. It's important to have a quiet, comfortable environment for independent reading. And you need space for youth to gather as a group and also to work independently. So that might mean rearranging space how it is set up normally. It might mean changing things for your literacy time. And it's also very important to have comfortable places for independent reading, because if we want kids to be reading for a prolonged period of time, we need to give them the opportunity to be comfortable. So if the space where you're in has linoleum floors, maybe consider getting carpet squares that they use during independent reading.
You also would like to have around the room some things that are print rich, posters, things that make the room look bright and welcoming and encourage the children to want to read and want to learn more.
And posters are a really good opportunity to connect to the other goals that your program may have, whether it's, community involvement or citizenship or something like that. Providing that print-rich environment with posters is a good way to do that.
There is another question, and it is, do you think having Kindles, etc. available will enhance reading?
Definitely. Definitely having technology around will enhance the whole experience.
I'm sorry, we're getting some feedback on the conference line. If you are able to, please press *6, and that will mute your conference line.
And then with the Kindles as well, we understand that that's, technology is a big investment, but, when they're used well, they can really, engage kids in reading and really make them excited to read. So just keeping that in mind as well.
Plus, there are lots of wonderful free apps out there that kids can use as a follow-up after literacy. So, yeah, we're
One thing that we've determined is really most important in making a quality literacy environment is staff dedication and commitment. So in order to do this, your staff needs to be on board with, making literacy better, doing more things for literacy, and making it quality literacy.
And that may not have been the way that things have operated in the past. In a lot of programs, there has been no set time for literacy. There have been, a variety of activities, but there was nothing that was sort of teacher-led. And so we realized that not all staff members are going to be wanting to do this or even feeling comfortable doing this at first. So we're focusing on a lead teacher concept and trying to go from there so that the lead teacher over time can encourage and train the rest of the staff.
And we realize that, the staff, in most cases are not certified teachers, and we cannot expect them to be certified teachers. However, what we expect them to do is reinforce the skills that students are learning in school through these activities. So instead of teaching them new things, they're reinforcing what they're doing in school so the kids get a better grasp of it. And so, along with that training that is provided to staff, the idea of a lead teacher, using a literacy coach, and then using available resources like PBS Learning Media and their free literacy professional development courses.
And then as we go on, we have to keep building up skills and following up on things. And the skills also, certain programs have a social focus or
a health focus, a citizenship focus. Yeah, I mean, these programs have specific goals.
So we try to make their literacy program tailored to their goals of their organization.
And that's a really good way to incorporate literacy as well, as to connect it with, the mission that you already have for your programs. And then a little bit more on the lead teacher. So that lead teacher would be not necessarily a certified teacher, but it'd just be someone who would be in charge of planning the read-alouds and the activities, choosing the book, choosing the activity that would go along with the book, and leading that activity with the support of the additional staff.
And ideally, the lead teacher would, be willing to try new things and develop group management skills and have some higher education.
The next thing that we'd like to talk about is scheduling time for literacy. So with that, there needs to be time for staff to plan these activities, which again may mean a change in how things have been done in the past. So because they need time to sit and think about what goals do they want to accomplish, what are the grade level standards they're trying to match up with, what are they doing in school that they're trying to connect to. So they need time to do that. They need time to choose a read aloud and time to choose an activity to go with it.
And we have a sample schedule that we've come up with and encouraged all our sites to use. All right, well, there's the scheduling. Anyway, and in this schedule, you need to do it early in the day before everybody starts going home. Ideally, the kids need a little break between school time and out of school time. And you need to stick to the same routine every day and allow the staff time to get comfortable and then, to expand on their own after that.
And so with that, taking advantage of those resources that are available for literacy to help plan, to help, provide activities and give a good starting point. So PBS Kids is a great resource because we know all of those activities are educational. The PBS Learning Media has another great resource as well. That does require a login, but then it's free and you have access to a whole bunch of different resources. Public libraries are a fabulous resource to use as well, not only in terms of books, but also in the resources that they have available online. And then there are also various websites that have resources, as activities and lesson plans to do as well, like Reading Rockets, but also provide research and different resources for your staff to help them grow as educators.
And many of these places, there are free lesson plans available, so that really would help the staff, especially if they're not familiar with creating lesson plans.
Yes.
Okay, on our sample schedule, we might think that, the kids come in at 3:10, they have a snack for 20 minutes, and then for a half hour we do a read aloud and a book discussion and perhaps another 20 minutes of writing activity. This doesn't need to be a long program, 30 to 40 to 60 minutes daily, or even 4 times a day would be ideal.
Yeah, and then, with the varying the activity. So they have their schedule of, you come in and do the routine of, we eat snack and then we do something academic. And so, it doesn't have to be the same activity every day. For example, on ours, we have Mondays is read aloud and Tuesdays is independent reading. So you're getting both of those in there, but the kids get into the routine of, after we kind of come in and take our break from school, then we go back to working on things and are in that mindset. And then again, like Angela said, early on in the day before kids start leaving, because we want to impact as many kids as possible.
We've come up with some titles that we really like for read alouds. The Very Hungry Caterpillar by Eric Carle, Don't Let the Pigeons Drive the Bus by Mo Willems, Are You My Mother by P.D. Eastman, Stregonona by Tommy DePaulo, Charlotte's Web by E.B. White, The Penderwicks by Jean Birdsall, My Father's Dragon by Ruth Stiles Gannett, and Maniac McGee by Jerry Spinelli. There are tons of great books out there, and those books, should stay in pretty good shape because the teachers are the persons using them, and a lot of them have extended vocabulary or story lessons, story elements that you can focus on.
And with these as well, it's very possible to make these cross-curricular to meet the different goals that you have. So, for example, with The Very Hungry Caterpillar, if you read that book over maybe 2 weeks, in the first week that you read it, what you focused on the literacy element of what happened, first, next, last, and then the next week you could focus on the math elements of the book and counting all the different things that the caterpillar ate. The same with like Charlotte's Web, for example. You could have different goals based on what you want your kids to understand that day or that week during the read aloud time. We'd also like to let you know that older kids can listen to picture books too. You can read aloud picture books to older kids, and it's all about the questions that you ask while you're reading. And it's very important to ask comprehension questions as you read, before reading, during reading, and after reading, to really make sure that the kids understand.
And have different levels of follow-up activities based on their age. So the older kids could have a more complex response to the book versus the younger children.
And what we've noticed in a lot of sites too is many sites do group by age, and that is a good way to make sure kids are doing age-appropriate activities. But that doesn't mean that just because you read a book in the K1 room doesn't mean you can't read it in the 2-3 room or the 4-5 room. You can share those books across grade levels. It's just about what you're doing with the book to make it to make sure the kids are understanding it on the level that is appropriate for them.
And I think we really want to stress that it's not that you just read a book to them. There really have to be strategies and preparations involved so that they actually get the most out of
Wonderful way to do that, doing repeated readings until the kids can read along with you at certain parts. Getting that group participation going, that if there's a repeated phrase, that they say it with you after they've heard it 3 or 4 times. And then doing different activities each time you read the book, especially with those short picture books. You can do a different activity each day. And so, if you do have, an art day or a craft focus day on Friday, you can read the book again for, the third or fourth time on Friday. And then that can be your fun day to do a craft or an activity with it. That as well. But yeah, we really want to get across that comprehension really is the most important part. And that does mean reading or asking questions before, during, and after reading, having that book discussion after, and then as you get more comfortable with that, building on those writing activities and literacy activity and vocabulary activities that go along with the book.
Okay, we've come up with a couple links that you might want to investigate. One of them is our wiki, and so you'll see that right there if you'd like to.
I can pull it up.
Okay.
And that's where we have links to a lot of the different materials we've created. So, for example, we have links to book lists that we've found from various sources, be it Children's Choice or other reputable sources of good book lists, to kind of get a starting point for you if you're selecting new books for your program or new books to read aloud. We also have some of the other resources we've put together, like if you're choosing a curriculum, questions to ask of you and your program as you consider a new curriculum. And so, and then we'll also have this PowerPoint on our wiki as well.
Another site that has a lot of free material, from phonics materials to complete lesson plans on different titles, is the Florida, what is that?
Florida Center for Reading Research. And that's one that, if you the link goes right to the 4 educators, and there's some really good student center activities. So if you're needing activities that are educational, but the kids will kind of consider them games, you can choose by grade level, K1, 2, 3, and 4, 5 student center activities. And with those, you can go by skill. And so that would be, if we clicked on 2-3 student center activities, and then we can scroll down to the bottom, and there will be, we can choose, between phonics and phonemic awareness and comprehension and fluency links all the way down there at the bottom. So we can choose, phonemic awareness or phonics, and there'll be PDF files of games and materials that we can use. And can we see what some of those look like, and will that work?
It should.
Okay.
Can people on the line just tell me, are you able to see the whole screen that I'm sharing right now, including the website? You can type it into the chat box. Yes. Wonderful. Okay. So yes, we can try out one of these links and see how it works. Will this work here?
Yeah, that would be good. And so what this site does offer is, it'll have the skill at the top, the vocabulary, and this is the activity that students can do, and it'll give you, the goal, the objective that you're working on, materials that you'll need, and then the activity, and then it'll have directions for that as well. And then as we scroll down, there'll be other activities, and then the resources for those activities as well. So, if you've got kids that you have a goal of working on vocabulary, you want them to do that. So here's a resource of research-based activities that are quality. Because like Angela said, there are tons of resources online, and sometimes it's a lot of work to shift through the ones that are quality and the ones that are not. So here's a resource of lots of different quality literacy activities.
And the nice thing is there are a lot of free resources out there, and just bringing them to everyone's attention. And we do a lot of research on different things that we think might be helpful to you.
And so, as we discover new things as well, we do share them on our wiki. And so that'd be something to definitely check out, maybe today or in the near future, but also come back to a little later and see the other resources that are available there. With that as well, we have some of those strategies that we talked about, questions to ask before, during, and after reading, comprehension strategies, and links to other resources. For example, the Iowa Reading Association has some good strategies on there as well. So we have those links together in that spot. So if you are looking for more specific things like that, that'd be the place to find them.
And we're available for questions anytime. So
yes, and our contact information is also on the wiki. So if you do have a question, feel free to contact us. Does anyone have any questions now?
Feel free to ask a question directly on the conference line, or you can type your question into the chat box too. I see we have 2 people typing in the chat box. One question is, where do I find the age-appropriate reading times for children?
Well, that would be one thing that we can recommend as well. You couldn't find this information online, but we would say for kindergartners, reading independently no more than 20 minutes. That would be, kindergarten, first grade, of the times that they're going to be reading independently, tops 20 minutes. For older kids, We talked about this, and it really depends on the level of, the stamina of your kids. So it's going to be shorter as you begin, but then as you build stamina, as they build their reading stamina, it's going to increase. So again, with 2, 3, 20 to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And then, 4, 5, probably 30. And then as they build stamina, you can ask them to read for longer periods of time. But that doesn't mean that your only academic activity can be for 20 minutes. You can do 20 minutes of independent reading or guided reading, where the adult reads and asks questions. And then they do, another 15 minutes of a different activity. So you have a longer academic time, but just that independent reading time would be a little bit shorter.
You might be able to find that information too with the Iowa Reading Association. And it really does depend on the kids. And basically, we want this to be sort of short and fun, but they're getting a lot of one-on-one and a lot of stuff that they might not be getting in the classroom. And we're going to try to have a lot more hands-on and activities than they might also be getting in the classroom.
And one thing as well is a lot of schools require or ask kids to read 20 minutes every evening. And so after school is a really good time to do that. However, every day it doesn't have to be 20 minutes of independent reading. That 20 minutes of reading can be the read aloud that they listen to and participate in, as long as your staff makes sure that everyone is participating and understanding.
And it could be buddy reading.
Yeah, or especially having an older, if you have, fifth graders, having the fifth graders come in and read once a week to the kindergartners and first graders, something like that where you can buddy the kids up as well.
There was another question regarding where this PowerPoint can be found on the wiki, and we will go ahead and post that following this webinar. So it isn't available just right now, but it will be after the webinar, and I can go ahead and send out an email. If you are interested in leaving your email address in the chat box, or you can contact me directly, I will type my email into the chat box. If you don't receive the PowerPoint, go ahead and shoot me an email and I can get that over to you, but we will definitely post it on our Out of School Time Initiative wiki. And I do see another question here in the chat box. It says, I would like to learn more about electronic activities, etc., for especially 4 to 6 graders.
Hello there.
Okay.
Hi.
And so with those electronic activities, we've done some research on academic games, that are found online, some apps that we've determined are, good apps to be using. And so we'll make sure all of that material is posted on the wiki as well.
We have posted that before because it's really good to know that the app is actually a good, safe app to put the kids on. And I'd also strongly suggest that you check it out before you put the kids on it so that you're familiar with it and to make sure that it's everything it says it is. But we do have a whole list of some good sources there, and there are lots of free sources also with PBS. So I would try going through IPTV to find their resources. They have lots of free apps at the App Store you can download.
A lot of times they have them organized by age or grade level too.
They do, yes. And then with those as well, just make sure that, if you play the game, play it for a few rounds, not just 1 or 2, because sometimes, they'll say you can have a certain practice limit before they say you need to buy a membership in some sites, or that, make sure you play enough.
Using iPads, so they could take a story that's been read, they could recreate it, make their own movie, they could write their own script about something or do interviews. I mean, really, there. And I do believe right now that PBS Media has a free education course or a free presentation that you can watch to see all the different things you can do, even using iPhones. So there's a lot of stuff out there, and I think they're a wonderful source for technology information.
Yes, and so, and one thing we'd like to do with this initiative is kind of bring awareness to all those different free resources out there as well, so, they can be in use.
We had a few more people typing.
Reverse.
Great. Linda says,
I gotta go the other way. Oh, the other way.
Um,
Hey.
If you're on the conference line, I think we're getting some feedback of some personal conversation, so please go ahead and mute your conference line if you're not asking a question. Linda in the chat box says, thanks for being such a tremendous help. And Susanna also says, thank you. Yeah, go ahead and keep sending your emails, and if you'd like me to contact you directly with the PowerPoint. Does anybody have any other questions at this time? Great, Melissa says great session. I guess I will ask one question because I've watched the two of you work through this initiative and starting from scratch. Can you talk a little bit about some of the challenges you had to go through in sifting through all of this literacy material and what the experience was to start from scratch and go into these after school programs and try to integrate literacy effectively?
It was different than we thought it would be. We thought we'd kind of go in and give them provide literacy materials and it would be good, and that's really not what it's been. We've had to provide a lot more support in terms of how to use materials, how to plan, how to schedule time effectively. We talked about that appropriate amount of time. Using, if you've got academic time built into your day, how do you use that to be the best that it can be in terms of literacy and also connections to school as well. Because if your program does have the opportunity to connect to the school district and connect with teachers and what they're doing, we really encourage you to take advantage of that and make sure you know what's going on in the schools.
So far, it's been a real learning adventure for us. We both came from a classroom environment, and so in some ways, I guess we expected to recreate that, but that's not what after-school programs are about. And we've done a lot of research. And the interesting thing is, a lot of the research validates accessible to staff, and that they aren't teachers and they're not going to be planning curriculum. So we need to have something that is sort of at their fingertips that's ready to use. That's our goal, I think. We're working toward that.
Yeah.
Yes, and speaking of having that information at your fingertips, Emily and Angela have done a phenomenal job of trying to record this information as they're finding it along the way and developing resources, all of which you can find on that wiki website so that other people don't have to start from scratch, and looking at ways that we can replicate this and make it sustainable.
And one thing that we've really realized that out of school time has so much potential. Like Angela said, we both came from the classroom, and there are so many demands put on teachers. With the skills that you need to focus on, and with all the focus on testing and all those things, that there isn't really time for those fun activities, those fun enrichment activities. And so after school is really becoming the place for that. And we really encourage after school programs to take advantage of that and do those fun reinforcement things that there frankly isn't enough time for in school.
And I think from this point on that this definitely is the wave of the future, and that it's just going to keep building from here.
Out of school time programs that we have, we'd also like to let you know that we're going to share about the December 13th. Yeah, okay. That we're having a session on how summer is planning for the summer session. And so, starting to think, I know it's only October, but starting to think about summer and starting to plan for that. And so on December 13th, we're going to be having a kind of planning readiness session to kind of get programs starting to think about summer. And so we'll be sharing materials related to that as well.
And we have a really good resource that we'll be sharing that is sort of a planning template. And then especially for our sites, we can then incorporate different areas of the curriculum and get materials in advance so that you're ready to go in the summer.
Yes, so that session will be on December 13th, and there is a planning guide that participants receive. It's a $104 value, is that correct?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. So, do we have any other questions from the audience at this time? Otherwise, you know where to find us and you know where to find our literacy coaches now. If you just go on that wiki website, the PowerPoint, like I said, will be available after the webinar. It will be available this week. We will post it on that wiki website. Linda says, how can I become a participant? Do you mean for December 13th, Linda, or? Oh, for a reading coach and for December 13th.
Who is Linda with?
So, so which program are you with, Linda? What we could do is, if you want, we could have our literacy coaches contact you after this webinar. It looks like she's with Galaxy and Grinnell, Montezuma. So we can have our literacy coaches contact you and talk about some of those specifics. As far as December 13, I can forward that information to you, and I think I have your email here already. Was there a question on the conference line? Okay, Linda says we're cutting out right now. Okay. Well, I just want to thank our literacy coaches for being here and presenting today and for sharing all of the great work that they are doing, and also thank you all